All right. Well, hope the test went okay and got your case study all set up. Today, what we're going to talk about is kind of moving into the idea of looking at research, and in particular scientific research, and coming up with some strategies of how to help us solve problems and make decisions, and using research to help that. Again, the better you understand the situation and the more information you have, the better answers that you can come up with, or the better solutions to the problem. Again, trying to reach that objective that you have set forth. So today, that's what we're going to get into, is looking at kind of an overview of scientific research, looking at it, how it applies to us in our field, and then through the course of the next couple days, we'll get into other topics that have to do with research and helping us understand this idea of helping us make good, sound decisions, and with the culmination being looking at sport analytics, which is a really hot topic out there. And so that's kind of what we're going to tap into over the course of the next couple days as we get closer to the end of this our time together. So let's look at some scientific research and how it applies to us in recreation and sport management. So, kind of a brief overview. What is research? Research is just a systematic investigation within a discipline. In our case, our discipline is recreation and sport management, undertaken to establish facts and principles to contribute to the body of knowledge. So, one of the things that we'll talk about is, the overarching idea of research is how can we improve the body of knowledge within our particular discipline, so that, again, it'll help practitioners and people in the field understand what's taking place. And in that effort to understand, we can make steps to make better decisions. And some research leads itself into better decision making, and some of it is more theoretical basis. So what we hope to do, what we'll use a lot of, and we'll talk about this here in a second, is applied research. That's what the practitioner is going to use. So a lot of times research is based on theory. There's a lot of theories out there. Some of the ones in other disciplines that you're probably quite familiar with are the theory of gravity. Well, we think of gravity as kind of, I guess it's a law now, but in the beginnings it was a theory that things fell down. Why? Because there was a pull that pulled things down towards the center of the earth, right? And so that idea of gravity sprung up, and they did a lot of research to try to prove or disprove gravity. One of the theories that came out in recreation and sport management early on was the theory of centrality. And theory of centrality basically said that all when you look at athletics, the middle or the central point of any team should be basically, without, I'm not going to harp on it, but should be white. Because why? They're the smarter players. Again, theory, not my theory, the theory that was out there early on. And you saw it happening. Where was, pitchers, catchers, middle infielders, center fielders. The key to baseball, all white, because they were the smarter people. When you look at football, quarterback, center, the idea was they should be white, and as you move out to the periphery, then that should be black. A theory, greatly disproven, but it was a theory. Okay, and their research went to prove or disprove that. That's what theories do. Okay, so the idea is here. That's what the basis of all research is you have a theory, you have a belief of what's going to take place, and based upon observations or previous research, and then your research then is set up to try to prove or disprove that. And it's guided by a problem statement or a question. Okay, and sometimes our questions are very practical. Think about, one of the most basic questions you ask yourself every day is, what should I wear? Okay, well, problem statement is, what should I wear? And then you base it upon your facts that you gather as far as helping you make a good sound decision of what clothes you should wear on that particular day. What do you look at? Temperature, humidity, wind, sun out, sun's not, or whether it's raining. You look at all those particular parts to help you decide what would be appropriate to wear for that particular day. Okay, so sometimes it's very practical, sometimes it's very theoretical, but it's always guided by a question. Okay. Again, one of the things that theory tries to do is look at logic. Okay, we talked about logic the other day and watched a couple of videos on logic. Here's a quick little logic statement. Penguins are black and white. Some old TV shows are black and white. Therefore, some penguins are old TV shows. Okay? Is that kind of giving us a problem statement or looking at kind of our hypothesis? Are penguins, since they're in old TV shows, are they related? Okay? Very facetious, but it's a starting point for our potentially us doing research. Now again, very facetious, we're not going to do that, but it's something that we could look at. So the nature of research. Research implies careful, systematic way of gathering information, way to solve a problem, right? We want to gather that information, try to help us solve a problem, answer a question that we have. Basic research, this is more the theoretical side of it. May have very limited direct application. Okay, so a lot of times people in our field with recreation and sport management, particularly in my realm with doing research, gets accused of, well, that's great that you're adding to the body of knowledge and helping answer some questions in theory, but how do we apply it? I'm a Parks and Recreation director. I'm a person, a GM for an organization. How do I apply that information to help answer my organizational questions? And a lot of times there's very limited application to that. So, and also the researcher has in a basic research, everything is very structured. A lot of times this research comes out of labs. Be honest, we don't do a whole lot of basic research. A lot of the basic research is done by exercise science, where it has to be very strict guidelines and protocols to follow so that they can generalize to the population. Okay, we don't really do that a whole lot. Some of my colleagues do stuff that's way out there, but we don't always do things that are going to be very controlled. Okay, it's really hard for us to control things and can do things in a lab. Applied research is more where it has applied value to the practitioner. So research has really little control over the setting. The researcher does. A lot of times it's done observations, surveys, where we're gathering information, but we don't have control over the people. Okay, so we do things like, I just did a research project with the county of Florence, where we did basically a needs assessment to see what their population, their people that live in Florence County wanted when it comes to recreation and sport for their communities. And we gathered the information, then we can make judgments based upon that to help provide that information to the county Parks and Recreation Department, and then they can use it to make decisions, right? That's what they can do. Where it's very applied. Okay, the research is very applied. We can tell them, hey, this is an area of need based upon what the population has told us, or the sample of the population has told us. So now you can take that and make decisions off of that. Okay. So basic research, think of it as very lab oriented. A lot of the stuff that you did in your lab class in biology or chemistry or physics, very structured, very very and done in a lab, where our research is more applied, has more oftentimes direct value to the practitioner. but the researcher has little control over it. One of the things I gave to you for tonight to take a look at is reading research. I want you to take a look at a research article, and I gave you one that's pretty practical, that's usable for you. But you'll notice that when you read research, it's going to include these parts: an introduction, a lit review, and basically a lit review just tells you what we know that's out there, whatever other people have already done. Okay. Then the methods: how do we gather our information? And then the results is what is the actual information that we gathered. And then the discussion inclusion: all right, we got this information, now what's it mean? How can other people use it? What oftentimes hopefully we can do is tell practitioners, here's what you can do with this information that we gather. And also you go back up and kind of show how it matches up with what other people have done with their research and their results, and to make sure that there's either disproves or supports what other people have said. Okay. So introduction kind of tells us the problem. Lit review tells us what we know about it. Methods tell us how we're going to gather our information. Results explain the findings. Just tell us what we found. Okay. So a good research article tells you. You should go through and look at this article that I gave you to read and look at what is the purpose. Okay, what's the question? What's the purpose? What do they know? What information exists out there? That's kind of that review of lit. How did they go about finding the information? So you'll see a method section. Methods usually contain information about who they got the information from, how they went about getting the information, and then what they do with that information. What did they find? How did those findings apply to the real world? And then lastly, what were the conclusions? What can they take? What are the takeaways from that? So as you take a look at this article that I posted for you, look through and see if you can find these different sections in there, and if they do exist. Okay. Observation. Why are they observing? Whom they're observing, and how they observe. That's kind of what they want to do. Is in your research. Why are you doing it? Well, you're trying to answer a question, right? Who are you going to observe? Who has the information that you want, okay, and how to observe it. So why basically establishes the whole need for the question. Why are we observing this? In our case with the Florence County, we're trying to give information back to Florence County Parks and Recreation in the county council to say, here's what people in the county want for Parks and Recreation. You have your choice now. Can you provide that or can't you? Is that something we want to pursue based upon the numbers and what we in our findings? Okay, so tries to answer the question, and it kind of sets the whole term for why you're doing it. So it's good. It's going to help you solve a problem. You're going to make good, sound, informed decisions if you get that information, right? The hypothesis, it's just the statement of what you think is going to take place, right? Basically, that's what a hypothesis is, okay? So prior to conducting your research, you kind of come up with, here's what I expect is going to happen, okay? Sometimes that's what happens, sometimes it doesn't. A lot of times, when I run projects with students, and even when I do it myself, we get disappointed when our hypothesis isn't proven to be correct. Well, that's still good information if it's not, because that's not what we expected to happen. So that's giving us good information. We're off, okay? And none of us like to admit that we're wrong, but it's good information for us to share. All right, we're gonna stop there for right now. Come back and finish up